The grand halls of the Zyra Dominion Palace were silent, except for the soft echoes of armored boots against polished stone. Princess Sciana sat upon the high throne, her golden eyes fixed on the massive doors ahead. She had faced warlords, politicians, and rivals, but today she was to meet someone far more unpredictable, a human warrior. Her hands remained still in her lap, though she could feel the tension in her muscles. This meeting was important. The war between the Zyra Dominion and the humans had ended after years of bloodshed, but peace was fragile. It required careful steps, and this was one of them. The heavy doors creaked open, and the guards stood at attention as a figure entered, tall, broad-shouldered, and wearing the sleek uniform of the Earth's coalition military. Commander Adrian Voss walked forward with steady steps. His gaze was sharp, calculating, but there was no arrogance in his expression, no hesitation in his movement. Sciana had prepared herself for a savage, a brute, perhaps even an overconfident fool. But Adrian Voss did not seem like any of those things. She straightened her posture, her expression remaining neutral. "Commander Voss, welcome to the Zyra Dominion." The human gave a small nod, his face unreadable. "Princess Sciana, an honor." His voice was deep but controlled, neither submissive nor disrespectful. She studied him closely, but his emotions were impossible to read. Zyra nobles always spoke with layers of hidden meanings, their body language a game of power and deception. But Adrian stood before her like an immovable stone, his presence powerful yet calm. "You stand in the heart of my people's empire." Sciana continued, tilting her chin slightly. "You must understand that we do not trust humans easily." Adrian met her gaze without flinching. "I wouldn't expect you to." The bluntness of his response took her by surprise. No unnecessary words, no long-winded diplomacy. Just a simple, honest statement. The tension in the room thickened as silence settled between them. Sciana wanted to test him, to see if the strength of humanity was truly as impressive as the reports claimed. "We Zyra believe that warriors must prove their worth through action, not words." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "I've heard of your customs." She leaned forward slightly, her golden eyes narrowing. "Then tell me, Commander Voss, do you believe humans and Zyra can ever truly coexist?" Adrian's expression remained steady. "That depends," he said. "If your people see us only as threats, then no. But if they see us as equals, then there is a future." Sciana felt something stir inside her, a strange mix of curiosity and frustration. Most warriors she met either bowed to her status or challenged it with pride. But Adrian, he spoke as if they stood on the same ground, as if her royal title held no weight over his presence. She needed to regain control of the conversation. "You are different from what I expected." He gave a small, unreadable smile. "I'll take that as a compliment." Before she could respond, a Zyra guard stepped forward, bowing slightly. "Princess, the council awaits your decision." Sciana's fingers tightened slightly around the armrest of her throne. This meeting was a formality, but it would decide much. The council wanted her approval to proceed with the diplomatic talks, and her opinion would shape the future of relations between the Zyra and humans. She looked at Adrian again, searching his face for signs of arrogance or fear. There were none, only patience. Finally, she stood, her golden ceremonial robes flowing around her. "Very well, Commander. We will continue these discussions. But know this, peace is not given. It is earned." Adrian gave another small nod. "Understood." As the meeting ended and the doors closed behind him, Sciana let out a slow breath. For the first time in years, she felt something unexpected. A challenge. And she was not sure if she was ready for it. Princess Sciana sat in the Grand Council chamber, her expression calm, though her mind was not. Across the long table, Commander Adrian Voss sat with the same unreadable look he had worn during their first meeting. He was not like other diplomats. He did not speak in circles or try to flatter her. He simply watched, listened, and answered with short, precise words. The room was filled with Zyra nobles and military officials, all observing him carefully. Many still saw humans as nothing more than dangerous creatures, a race of warriors who had survived against the powerful Zyra Dominion, despite their lack of advanced technology. Sienna knew better. Humans were not weak. They were something else, something unpredictable. A high-ranking Zyra noble, Lord Kale, leaned forward, his sharp gaze fixed on Adrian. "Commander, your people fought us for years. Now you sit at our table and ask for peace. Why should we trust you?" Adrian met his gaze without hesitation. "Because war benefits neither of us anymore. And because trust is not given, it is built." A murmur spread through the room. Zyra negotiations were usually filled with flowery words and hidden meanings. Adrian's directness was unusual and unsettling. Sienna studied him again, curious. He did not flinch under pressure. He did not lower his eyes in submission. He truly believed in what he was saying. Lord Kale narrowed his eyes. "And if trust is broken," Adrian's voice remained steady, "then we will fight again. But I don't want that. Do you?" Silence. Sienna allowed a small smile to form on her lips, a bold move, human. Most Zyra would have answered with long speeches about honor and duty, but Adrian simply asked a question, one that forced the council to confront the truth. Lord Kale frowned but said nothing more. The room shifted its attention back to Sienna. The princess tapped her fingers on the table, considering her next words carefully. "Commander Voss," she said, "you speak of trust and peace. But how do I know your words are not just tactics? That humans will not turn against us when the time is right." Adrian leaned forward slightly. His blue eyes locked onto hers. "You don't," he admitted. "Just like I don't know if your people will truly honor this treaty. The only way to know is to try." A few gasps were heard from the Zyra nobles. This human was fearless. Sienna felt something stir in her chest. Not anger, not annoyance, but something else. Admiration, amusement. She could not tell. Still, she could not let him have the last word so easily. "You are either very brave, Commander, or very foolish." Adrian gave a small, unreadable smile. "Sometimes they're the same thing." Another murmur filled the room. The nobles exchanged glances, unsure how to react to this human who spoke so openly, without fear. Sienna tapped the table again, signaling for silence. "Very well," she said. "The negotiations will continue." Adrian gave a small nod. "Good." The meeting ended, and the nobles began to leave, whispering amongst themselves. Sienna stood, but as she turned to leave, Adrian's voice stopped her. "Princess Sienna." She glanced back. "Yes, Commander." His expression remained neutral, but his voice carried a quiet strength. "You don't trust me. I understand that. But I hope, in time, you will." She held his gaze for a moment before finally replying, "We shall see." As she walked away, she felt something strange, something unexpected. For the first time in her life, a human had left her with more questions than answers, and she wasn't sure if she liked it. The palace training grounds were quiet now. The duel between Princess Sienna and Commander Adrian Voss had ended, but the energy of the battle still lingered in the air. The princess had been defeated, not humiliated, but challenged in a way she had never expected. She looked at the human standing before her. He was not out of breath, but there was sweat on his forehead. He was strong, but more than that, he was smart. Sienna rolled her wrist, feeling the slight ache where Adrian had grabbed her. "Your technique is unrefined," she admitted, "but effective." Adrian chuckled, crossing his arms. "I'll take that as a compliment." The princess studied him for a moment. Among her own people, strength and skill earned respect. She had always believed that humans were weaker, slower, and inferior in battle. But Adrian had just proven her wrong. "Tell me, human," Sienna said, tilting her head, "what drives you to fight?" Adrian's smirk faded slightly. He exhaled, glancing up at the twin moons above them. Survival. She raised an eyebrow. That is all. His gaze returned to her, steady and serious. For humans, survival means more than just living. It means protecting our people, our families, our way of life. We fight because we have no choice. Siana nodded slowly. In a way, it was not so different from her own people. But there was something about the human will to survive that intrigued her. She stepped closer. Your people were outmatched in the war, yet you still fought. Even when surrender was the only logical option. Adrian's expression hardened. Surrender wasn't an option. Humans don't break that easily. Siana felt something stir in her chest, a feeling she could not name. The way he spoke, the fire in his eyes, he reminded her of the great Zyra warriors of old. A thought crossed her mind. What if I told you, she said, watching his reaction, that the war between our people may not be over? Adrian narrowed his eyes. Explain. Siana hesitated. She was breaking protocol by saying this, but something about this human made her want to speak the truth. There are factions in the Zyra Empire that do not accept this peace treaty, she admitted. They believe our people should rule without compromise. Adrian's jaw tightened. And what do you believe? Siana took a slow breath. I believe war is costly. I believe my people have underestimated yours. She looked him in the eyes. And I believe peace is possible. Adrian studied her carefully. He had seen enough war to know when a battle was brewing. If what Siana said was true, then humanity was not safe yet. He sighed. Then we both have a problem. Siana gave a small smile. Perhaps. A gust of wind blew between them, and for a brief moment, they simply stood there, a human warrior and an alien princess, bound by conflict but beginning to understand each other. And though neither of them said it, they both knew. This was only the beginning. The air inside the palace was heavy with tension. Commander Adrian Voss followed Princess Cyanid down the dimly lit corridors, his mind still replaying her words. The war may not be over. It was a dangerous statement. Adrian had fought in battles where soldiers died believing peace was possible. If factions in the Zyra Empire still wanted war, then humanity was far from safe. Siana stopped in front of a large metal door. Two Zyra guards, clad in shining armor, stood at attention. They glanced at Adrian with suspicion, but said nothing as the princess entered a code into the door panel. With a soft hiss, the door slid open, revealing a holographic war table in the center of the room. Glowing red and blue markers floated above the surface, representing Zyra and human forces. Adrian stepped closer. You weren't lying. His eyes scanned the hidden fleet movements marked in deep red. Some of your people are still preparing for war. Siana folded her arms. These are the warlords who oppose peace. They believe the empire should rule without question. Adrian exhaled sharply. And your father, the emperor? She hesitated before answering. He wants peace, but he is old. His control over the council is weakening. Some of the generals no longer listen to him. Adrian clenched his jaw. This was worse than he thought. Humanity had barely survived the first war. Another war could destroy them. You had this information all along? He asked, his voice tense. Siana met his gaze. I suspected, but tonight, after our fight, I was sure. Adrian raised an eyebrow. Our fight convinced you. She nodded. You are not just strong, Commander. You are resourceful. You think differently than us. Her voice softened. I was raised to believe humans were weak, that your people survived by luck. But after facing you, I see now why you survived the war. Adrian crossed his arms. And what do you plan to do about it? A flicker of uncertainty passed over her face. I need to stop this before it begins. Adrian studied her carefully. Siana was powerful, but she was also alone. If the Rom people found out what she was doing, she would be labeled a traitor. Then you need help, he said. She blinked, surprised. You would help me. Adrian smirked. You just admitted that humans don't break easily. If another war is coming, I'd rather stop it before it begins. Siana hesitated. The idea of working alongside a human was unthinkable. But then again, so was peace, until now. For the first time in her life, she felt something strange. Trust. She turned back to the war table and pointed at a specific set of red markers. There is a general who leads this rebellion. His name is Lord Vorik. He controls a fleet of warships stationed near the outer rim. If he moves, the war will begin. Adrian narrowed his eyes. Then we stop him before that happens. Siana nodded, but she knew this would not be easy. If they were caught working together, both of them would be considered traitors to their own people. Adrian straightened. All right, Princess. What's the plan? Siana took a deep breath. For the first time, she was not fighting for the Empire. She was fighting for something bigger. And she wasn't alone. Princess Guyana and Commander Adrian Voss moved quickly through the palace corridors, their steps silent against the polished floor. They had little time. If they were caught together, especially near the restricted War Council chambers, questions would be asked. Dangerous questions. Adrian glanced at Siana. You sure you want to do this? Betraying your own kind isn't something you can take back. Siana shot him a sharp look. I am not betraying my people. I am protecting them from a war they cannot win. Adrian nodded. He could respect that. But deep down, he knew this was bigger than either of them. Stopping Lord Vorik wouldn't just save the Empire. It would save humanity too. They reached a large metallic door with 2 Zira guards standing in front of it. Siana took a deep breath and straightened her posture. Let me handle this. She walked forward with confidence. The guards immediately saluted. Princess Siana, what brings you here at this hour? I need access to the Council's intelligence reports, she said smoothly. The Emperor has asked me to review Lord Vorik's fleet status. The guards exchanged a glance. We have not received any such orders. Siana's expression hardened. Are you questioning the Emperor's will? The guard stiffened. Of course not, Your Highness. One of them pressed a button, and the door slid open. Adrian followed her inside, keeping his eyes on the guards until the door sealed shut behind them. The War Council chamber was dark except for the soft blue glow of holographic displays. Siana quickly approached the main terminal, her fingers gliding across the interface. I need to locate Vorik's fleet. Adrian watched the holograms shift as data scrolled across the screen. Then, Siana's eyes widened. They're moving. Adrian stepped closer. What? She zoomed in on the fleet's position. Vorik's warships have already left their stations. They're heading toward the border worlds. Adrian clenched his jaw. They're making their move. Siana's hands tightened into fists. If they attack human colonies, the peace treaty will break. The war will start again. Adrian's mind raced. How many ships? Siana's voice was grim. At least 20 battlecruisers. Adrian cursed under his breath. 20 battlecruisers were enough to wipe out entire human settlements. They had to act fast. He turned to Siana. Do you have any loyalists in the Imperial fleet? Siana hesitated before nodding. A few, but they will not act without direct orders from the Emperor. Adrian exhaled. That was a problem. The Emperor was too weak to stop Vorik, and by the time the Council debated, the war would already have begun. We don't have time, Adrian said. We need to stop Vorik before his ships reach human space. Siana met his gaze. Then we have only one option. Adrian raised an eyebrow. I have a feeling I'm not going to like this. Siana's lips curled into a small, determined smile. We steal a ship. Adrian blinked. You're right. I don't like this. Siana turned back to the console, pulling up the fleet's roster. There's a fast diplomatic cruiser docked in the palace hangar. It's lightly armed, but it can get us to Vorik's fleet before they enter human space. Adrian crossed his arms. And then what? Politely ask them to turn around. Sienna's eyes burned with resolve. No, we make them. Adrian stared at her for a moment before shaking his head with a grin. You're full of surprises, princess. She smirked. And you are slow. Now come, before someone notices we're missing. Together, they moved quickly through the shadows, heading toward the hangar. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but if they failed, millions would die. Neither of them would let that happen. The fight was just beginning. The hangar was quiet when Princess Tayana and Commander Adrian Voss arrived, their footsteps echoing softly in the vast space. The diplomatic cruiser they needed to steal sat in the far corner, a sleek vessel that barely looked like it could handle a fight. But it was their only chance. Adrian glanced at Sayana. You sure this is going to work? Sayana didn't respond immediately. Instead, she approached the ship, tapping in a series of commands on her wrist console. I've bypassed the security system. It's ready to launch. Adrian raised an eyebrow. You've been busy. Sayana gave a small smirk. I didn't come unprepared. They both boarded the ship quickly, with Adrian taking the controls. Sayana moved to the navigation station, her eyes scanning the data. Vork's fleet is still heading toward the border worlds. We need to catch them before they reach the human colonies. Adrian's hands moved expertly over the controls, bringing the cruiser's engines online. We'll make it in time, but just barely. Sayana gripped the armrest tightly as the ship began to lift off, breaking through the hangar bay doors. The stars outside were a blur as the ship accelerated, its engines humming as they moved toward the growing threat. Minutes passed, each one filled with a sense of urgency. Adrian kept his focus, knowing that if they failed, it wouldn't just be Zyra's empire at risk. It would be humanity's survival. Sayana watched the ship's data feed, her face set with determination. We're getting close. Vork's fleet is just ahead. Adrian's eyes narrowed. We need to make sure we don't get spotted too early. If they see us, we'll be sitting ducks. Sayana's fingers flew over her console. I'm patching into their fleet's communication systems. Let's see if we can find a weakness. Suddenly, a voice crackled over the comm system. Unidentified ship approaching. Adrian's heart raced. They had been spotted. Turn off your engines and prepare to be boarded, the voice ordered. This is Lord Vork's fleet. You will not pass. Sayana's eyes flashed. We can't give up now. Commander, if we run, we're dead anyway, she said. Prepare for battle. Adrian didn't hesitate. All right, let's show them what humans are made of. He pushed the ship forward, cutting through space toward the nearest warship in Vork's fleet. The ships loomed in the distance, massive and imposing. But Adrian's eyes were filled with determination. He wasn't going to let them win. As they approached, Sayana activated the cruiser's weapon system. I've armed the energy cannons. Let's see how they like a taste of human firepower. Adrian grinned. I thought you'd never ask. He fired the cruiser's main cannon, and the burst of energy sent shockwaves through the empty void. The beam struck one of the warships, sending it spinning out of control. But Vork's fleet was too large, and the remaining ships quickly locked onto the cruiser. Their guns fired, sending blasts of energy toward them. The ship rocked as they were hit, but Adrian held firm. They're closing in. Sayana shouted, her voice rising with urgency. We need to take out their command ship. It's the one leading the attack. Adrian looked ahead, spotting the massive flagship that hovered above the rest of the fleet. Got it. Hang on. He dodged the incoming fire with quick movements, maneuvering the cruiser expertly through the debris and explosions. Every moment felt like a lifetime as they weaved through the chaos, the sounds of battle all around them. Finally, they closed in on the command ship. Sayana didn't waste a second, targeting their engines. The cruiser's weapons fired again, sending a beam of energy straight at the flagship's engines. There was a loud explosion as the ship's power systems failed, and the flagship began to drift, now a sitting target. Adrian didn't stop. He aimed for the next target, the control tower of the flagship. One more hit, Siana called out. Adrian fired again, and the shot pierced the ship's control center. The flagship was crippled, its crew now powerless to stop the battle. Silence fell over the battlefield. Vork's fleet had been defeated. Adrian exhaled, his heart still racing. We did it. Siana looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. We did it. Thanks to you. Adrian smirked. I'm just the pilot. You did the hard part. As the two of them looked out at the defeated fleet, Siana turned to him. It's over now. The war won't happen. Adrian nodded. It's over. But peace will take time. Siana smiled, a look of hope in her eyes. And we'll be the ones who helped bring it. Adrian turned back to the controls, his fingers hovering over the ship's navigation panel. So, what now? Siana's voice was calm but firm. Now we head back home. With the threat of war finally averted, they turned the cruiser toward the horizon, toward the future, a future they would help shape together. And in that quiet moment, amidst the stars and the broken remnants of a once feared fleet, they knew they had changed the course of history. The cold night air of the Zyra capital was crisp and fresh as Princess Stiano walked along the palace's open courtyard. The twin moons of Zyra shone brightly, casting a soft silver glow over the marble floors. She had dismissed her attendants, needing time to think. Her mind was still on the human commander, Adrian Voss. His words lingered in her thoughts. He was unlike anyone she had met before, bold but not arrogant, strong but not reckless. He did not speak in riddles like the Zyra nobles, nor did he seek to impress her with empty gestures. He was direct, honest, and that made him dangerous in ways she had not expected. Siana's sharp ears caught the sound of approaching footsteps. She turned, expecting a guard, but was surprised to see Adrian himself. He was out of uniform, dressed in a simple dark tunic and pants. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes remained sharp as ever. "You walk alone at night?" he asked. She raised an eyebrow. "Do humans not?" Adrian smirked slightly. "Some do, but most royal figures usually have guards." She folded her arms. "I do not fear an attack in my own palace." Adrian studied her for a moment before nodding. "Fair enough." Silence settled between them. Siana was not sure why he had come here, but she was curious. "You move like a warrior," she observed. Adrian chuckled. "I was a soldier long before I was a diplomat." Siana tilted her head. "Then tell me, how strong are human warriors, really?" Adrian met her gaze. "Strong enough to survive against the Zyra." She smirked. "A lucky survival." Adrian shook his head. "Luck doesn't last in war. Skill does." Siana's golden eyes glowed faintly under the moonlight. She was enjoying this exchange. This human did not cower before her, nor did he try to dominate the conversation. He spoke as an equal. She suddenly had an idea. "Would you prove your words, Commander?" Adrian raised an eyebrow. "How so?" Siana gestured to the combat arena at the end of the courtyard. It was a traditional dueling ground, used by Zyra warriors for training and honor battles. "A duel," she said. "No weapons, just skill." Adrian considered her offer. "And what do I gain if I win?" She smiled. "Respect." Adrian crossed his arms. "And if I lose?" Siana shrugged. "Then you learn." For a moment, she thought he might refuse, but then he gave a small nod. "All right, Princess. Let's see what you've got." They stepped into the training circle. Siana removed her golden ceremonial robe, revealing a sleek, flexible combat outfit beneath. Adrian simply rolled up his sleeves. Zyra warriors prided themselves on their speed and precision. Siana had trained in combat since childhood, mastering every form of Zyra hand-to-hand techniques. But Adrian was human. His movements, his strategies, they were unknown to her. She took the first strike, moving fast, too fast for a normal human. Yet Adrian dodged, barely. His reflexes were sharper than she expected. He countered quickly, aiming a strike at her side, but she blocked with ease. She smirked. Not bad. Adrian didn't reply. He simply adjusted his stance. The fight continued, each exchanging blows, testing the other's limits. Sciana was faster, but Adrian was more unpredictable. He did not fight like a Zyra. His style was rougher, less refined, but it worked. For the first time in years, Sciana felt challenged. She leaped, twisting in midair for a powerful strike, but Adrian caught her wrist, using her own momentum to flip her onto the ground. She landed on her back, stunned. Adrian immediately stepped back, offering his hand. "You okay?" Sciana blinked. No one had ever countered her like that before. She took his hand and stood, brushing dust off her outfit. Then, to Adrian's surprise, she laughed. "I underestimated you, human." Adrian smirked. "Most do." Sciana's golden eyes locked onto his. For the first time, she felt something new. Respect. This human was not just a warrior. He was something far more interesting. And for the first time, she was eager to see what came next.